Hello, everybody. So welcome to this small video. I want to show you how to work with transits in the Shridoti Star software. Actually, the Shridoti Star software was designed from the very beginning for working with multiple charts, especially two charts at once, like a natal chart and a transit chart, or two people, or a natal and some event. It's designed from the ground up for that kind of work. But sometimes people ask, who are new to the software. So I just wanted to show you the basic idea. I think everyone would find this useful. So let's look at the software. So this is a page of the software. I just put a North Indian, a South Indian chart here. You can have East Indian or Western circles. And this is a 4 across and 3 by down format. You can easily change the format from the format menu. There are lots of possibilities. And if you click more, you'll get the page wizard, which lets you choose anything up to 10 by 10. Charts can be made bigger or smaller, dragging the corner, and you can also have a fine grid, I call the fine grid, which lets you do very precise layouts. But we'll turn that off, because right now you turn off the grid, it freezes everything, so it locks, which is very useful. So the idea now is to do see a transit for this lovely lady. And so if we go back to this is the data entry screen. This is her chart, and this appears in whatever format, style of chart that you most recently selected. And then we see down here, it says OK plus transit. Even if you don't click that first time, it creates a transit chart. And the transit charts are based on locations. So over here, we have things that relate to transits. So you can create a new location. You can show all the existing locations. I have a lot, I've traveled extensively. So you either select a location or you create a new location. If you select Now Chart, it'll create a chart for the most recently selected location with the current date and time. So that's that. But if you select a nativity, so like I'm selecting this nativity and I click OK plus transit, you'll see it creates a transit chart up here, and this is blue. Now you can change the color. Some people don't like color, they go off black and white. That's why there's this little asterisk here that shows it's the transit chart rather than the primary natal chart. But anyway, if you don't change the default, the primary nativity is red and the transit chart or other natal chart is blue. So everything that has a red heading relates to this natal chart. So if we want to see a chart for this particular little location in Virginia, we just simply need to create a chart and point it at that. So we click here, and if we just click in some blank space, you get all these possibilities. And at the top it says native with this. So you click on that and you select this one, and then you can choose what you're going to have. So let's say we're going to have a Rashi chart. I mean, if you type a number for the divisional chart, but you could type Rashi, you could type sign, anything that relates to that particular type of chart. And then if we click here, we'll get a chart with a blue heading. So this is the current transits. So we can see, if you have two South Indian charts together, it's very obvious to see, this ascendant right now is in the same sign as the sun in the natal chart, and so forth. So this is one simple way of comparing the natal and the transits by having the two charts next to each other. there are other options. But I think you probably realize that you can have anything, not just charts. You could have like a table of planetary positions. There are so many possibilities. But first, see if I click here, we'll get it for the primary by default. And if we select native for this, we can change it like that. Now, there are other ways of changing it. Let me show you because it's very convenient. Let's put a Panchanga here. Now, if I right-click on this chart, you'll see a big pop-up menu, and about in the middle of it, it says switch this to now Earlysville. I have to admit I use this all the time. You can do select native for this and choose now Earlysville, or you can just select this and it'll do it for you. So that is like a super fast way of switching the nativity. Now let's see other ways of comparing, having charts that compare two charts, like a natal chart and a transit chart. So if you're into the South Indian chart, there's actually what I call a South Indian bi-wheel. So if we click here and we type a little bit of wheel or bi-wheel, you'll see South chart bi-wheel. So this has both the natal chart and at the moment it has the natal chart on the outside. Inside and outside are both the natal chart. If we click on it and we select, we have to get rid of the search, and you select options for selected chart, that's the one you clicked on, you'll see down the bottom, all these are ways of controlling the look and feel of the chart. But down the bottom, you can control the Bible in particular. It says native for inside and native for outside. So we click on native for outside and we select this one. We could have selected anything. It could be another person. It could be another Varga chart. But if we wanted to draw a transit chart, this is what we've got. So again, you see the current ascendant and the natal sun. So this is just a way of collapsing these two charts into one chart, and it's very convenient. So that's for the South Indian preference people. Now, if you're more interested in North Indian or wheels type charts, we have a circle chart. So this circle chart is somewhat like the Western chart, but it's not exactly the same. It's actually got some improvements, I think, but that's personally just my opinion. Now, under circle chart, you can just click circle chart, but there's actually some presets. So when you see an X, that means you're cross-comparing, X for cross-comparing. There's lots of things in the software that have an X on it. That could be tables, graphs, charts, and so forth. And that means that two charts are going to be combined to give certain results. So I'll show you some examples, but this is for the circle chart. So cross-compare, and you get this. Now this is the North Indian style of the circle chart. You can see the North Indian lines here. And these lines show the boundaries of the bhavas, or houses. And there's a little tick mark. You see here the tick mark here and here. These are the centers, the bhava madhya, the middle of the houses. Now, any planet that falls on the center of a house has a particularly strong effect on that house. If a planet falls on the boundary of a house, the effect is very little on the house. This is what is explained by Vedic astrology, Maharishi Parashara. So what you see here is you see the signs, you see the houses. Now, it depends what house system you've selected. You can have an equal house system. You can make one house equal one sign, or you can have some unequal house system, like the Placidus, or in the Vedic, we have the Shripati, or Porphyry. So it just depends what your preference is. But the very nice thing about this chart is super fantastic, really, is that these cardinal points, in other words, at the top, at the left, at the bottom, and at the right, are the four cusps of the first house, fourth house, seventh house, and 10th house. So this point is always the 10th house cusp, whatever the house system you select. The houses, the signs may compress or expand based on the house system. You see, as you move north or south away from the equator, then houses tend to either compress or expand. It's just one of those phenomena. That's why, as if you're in the tip of India, which is not that far from the equator, they're not bothered much about these unequal house systems. But as you move north in India, and then, maybe Russia or Finland or somewhere, it becomes very crucial. So that the astrologers in the further northern latitudes tend to be rather preferring to use the house systems. It shows that the cardinal points are very important for them. So anyway, this is just on a side. But the point is, we've got on the inside here, we've got the transit chart, and on the outside, we've got the natal chart. Now, normally, with the South Indian chart, it's just traditional that you put the natal on the inside and the transits on the outside. That's the way they tend to do it in South India. But for the North Indian style, it tends to work better. It doesn't actually matter that much. You can have the natal on the outside or the natal on the inside, but one of them has to be fixed, because it becomes the anchor point. So I don't know, I've always used the nativity on the outside and the transits on the inside, but you can have it any way you like. You just click on the chart and then you look at the options. So you see ascendant fixed outside or inside, and then you can choose what you have on the outside and inside. You can also have divisional charts on the outside or the inside. So that's actually very, very powerful technique. And then you can choose to have in and out, or you can have just outside, or you can outside plus latitude. So the planets move a bit farther away from the circle, depending on their latitude. So it's a kind of little planetarium phenomenon. So there's just incredibly powerful chart like this. So you can get rid of the North Indian lines and have it just like a rather Western kind of wheel with the marks for the houses, but no lines in the background. But I just want to mention that the North Indian chart has one thing that's very special, which is that when you draw a circle on top of it, it divides the circle into 12 equal parts. Now, the Greeks were very focused on developing diagrams that consisted of straight lines that would enable them to divide the circle into different numbers of parts, equal parts. And this North Indian chart is the way to divide it into 12 equal parts, which is just something really interesting. Because their chart in India is called the Kundali. Kundali means a circle. But if you look at the charts they use, none of them are actually circles. But the North Indian chart has this speciality. You can't use it for South Indian or East Indian. So that's why it has this particular design here. So there's a lot of power. I just wanted to show you, at the top here, you see it says run. And here it says 1 hour. So you can change this to anything you like, up to 40 years from 1 second. And then if you click run, and this right now, you see the little brackets before and after the name. So this means that when you click this one is going to change, and it'll gradually change, you see. So if we click run like this is run forward or run backwards. So you just click here, and you see it starts moving. See the moon moving along slowly. This is 1 hour at a time. You can change the speed. Here, so you can go faster or slower, or just change the increment. You want to really slow down 1 minute. You see the ascendants very slowly moving. So little things like the, here you see, your upapadas and things are moving, or a lagna. Then we go for 1 day at a time, for example. And now you see the moon shooting along. You can go, any speed according to this, or according to what's selected here. Maximum is 40 years. There's a planetarium. And in the planetarium, if you're going 40 years at a time, then you actually you can see the procession. And we can do many things more with it. So you see this here, it says Rashi. So if that's RS for Rashi. This is showing the Rashis. If we click here on the left of it, it switches to NK, which generally indicates nakshatra in the software. And you'll see that all the nakshatras are marked. There's little tick marks for the beginning and end of the nakshatras, and they're color-coded based on the ruling planet as per the Vimshottari system. And there's a little tiny description of the name of the nakshatra. So let's make this a little bigger. Turn on the grid, and slide this across, and then just drag it out. So now you can see, hopefully, that this is Uttara Falguni, and this is Hasta, this is Chitra. I mean, if you know the names of the nakshatras, it's easy to read. But you can see this is obviously ruled by the moon. It's the sun. This is Mars. And if we click one more, it switches to the Lord. So it says Sun, Moon, Mars. So that's very clear. And as you keep going, there are lots more options. This is the Tarabala. Tarabala is a very powerful system. It's very many places in the software it's using it. And the Tarabala will be different for the outside and the inside if they're different charts. So you can see there's 2 circles. Here, this bluish color shows that the sun is in a difficult Tarabala from the moon, while on the inside chart, that particular nakshatra is fine. So this is, it's not the day for a Tarabala workshop, but it just shows you there are actually more options that become increasingly advanced as you keep clicking, or you can go back this way to Rashi. Now this, on top of every chart, in the top right corner, you see these 2, and this is for aspect lines. So if we click here, this is the Parashari exact aspects. That means that the Parashari system, Parashara teaches 2 systems, basically. There's a sign system where you're just counting signs. Let's say the 5th sign from Jupiter has a full aspect. And then Parashara gives a more detailed method, which is based on the exact longitudes. Now, if Jupiter's at the beginning of the sign and some other planets at the end of the 5th sign from it, it's not really a trine. See, the most powerful aspect of Jupiter is at exact 120 degrees, going forwards like that, or going backwards, actually. So this makes a big difference, but when we're doing normal readings quickly, we don't have time or something, we're just looking, is there a trine? Are we counting 5 houses? So this is the exact. So it does it for you, you can see very clearly. And then if we go a bit further, we'll see these are the so-called Jaimini aspects, which are what we call Rashi Drishti. So all the dual signs are aspecting each other. The movable signs are aspecting the fixed signs, and the fixed signs are aspecting the movable signs. So this is the Rashi Drishti system, which some people call the Jaimini system, but it's also taught by Parashara. And then this is both, just in case you want that. And then this is the Parashara system, where it says sign. That means this is the Parashara system where you're counting. So, for example, here we have Jupiter, and it's aspecting over here the other Jupiter because of the number of signs. this is something which you might prefer. Now, in this aspect lines, at the moment, you see the aspect is going from you can just see these little arrows here. So it's going from here, which is in fact it's Jupiter here, and it's going across to here, which is the internal Jupiter. There's a little arrow here. Now you can use the options for switching it so it goes in the reverse direction. Or you could have the aspects within the inside chart or within the outside chart only. So you've got all these options. You can also control the aspect lines in terms of basically the number of aspects you see. One way of controlling the orbs, we can just click anywhere and we type a little bit of orbs. And now you see firstly, we can see the totals of what orbs there are. So for the Parashari aspects, this is basically the Vedic aspects, there's a score of 49 out of 60. It's out of 60 because that's the way traditionally these things are scored, like 360 degrees, 60 minutes, 60 seconds. Everything's based 60. So that's the Vedic threshold is whatever it says here. And then this is for some Bandha calculations. And these are all for the Western aspects. So we have like conjunction, opposition, and so forth. So they're minor aspects and the major aspects. Now, down here, this is a new feature recently added. We can click here to reset all the orbs to the default. So we've been messing around. We want to get back to the kind of sensible default orbs. Then if we agree to this, we'll see everything reset like this. Then we can narrow orbs. We don't have to reset. That's not necessary, but you can narrow the orbs or you can widen the orbs. So if you narrow the orbs, then you see you click a few times, you'll see things changing. This number is increasing. And so it causes the number of lines to decrease, but not in the sign aspects. We have to move to one of these ones this is independent of the thresholds. If we go to the Parashari, then we'll see that at this threshold level, there's very few aspects because there's hardly, everything has to be full aspect to show here. But if we widen the orbs, you'll see more appear. So it's really up to you how much you see. You can control it here. Now we can go to the Western, and we can see that there's a lot of aspects. So there's minor aspects with the dotted lines and major aspects with the solid lines. And we can put this up here, and then we can narrow the orbs, and you'll see we get fewer aspects. And you see them, how these numbers are decreasing. So you really have to pick something which you feel is working for you. Because if you have too many aspect lines, it's very hard to make anything out of it. Of course, if you're using Western aspects, you can turn on the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as well. We're going to add more options to that. So I'll just say the Tajika aspects are a special kind of aspect. It's a kind of unusual sort of aspect. And you learn about that when you study the Tajika system. And then the systems approach has a 5-degree maximum orb. So there needs to be some aspects which fit that. So the threshold is still applicable. Now, this is a North Indian style circle chart, just because it has the North Indian in the background. But we can get rid of those lines. We just click on it. We click options for selected chart. And here it says house style North. So we can go with spokes and numbers. and then it will come out like this. These are the house numbers. We can also put the ascendant here on the left if we like. Now there's another type of bi-wheel which is designed specifically for the nakshatras. So if we click here and we type part of Sarvato Chakra, the Sarvato Chakra, or SBC for short, and it looks like this. And then here in the top right corner, we have a 1, which means that it's one chart at the moment. If we click on it, we'll get 2 charts. So now we have the natal chart on the inside and the transit planets on the outside. Now, there's a lot of power in this. It's a very, very powerful method or chart. But if we're just studying the transits, which is definitely very important. So, for example, we can see the natal moon. If you click on the box with the natal moon, then it will show you what's called the nakshatra aspects or Vedas. So what we can see here is that there's an aspect in the natal chart from Saturn, and in the transit chart, Ketu has an aspect on the moon. And then, of course, you can run this chart forward. You can see the planets moving. There's a lot of indications which are placed next to the names of the nakshatras. So this is the birth nakshatra. Because it's based on the moon here, we could change this. Or, this nakshatra is to do with wealth. This is to do with problems, prosperity, obstacles, favors, suffering, and so forth. And if we like the Sanskrit terms, we can click here and you'll see the Sanskrit terms. Some people have learned it using the Sanskrit terms. And there's different kinds of labelings we can adjust with this switch here. So it's a big topic, but just to see the transits, it's very easy, anybody can see them. And it's a very powerful technique because this type of transit aspect is not visible in the regular chart. You won't see it. So this is one way of seeing it, and there's also a table which shows all the aspects. But I personally find it very visual to see it like this. So you just have to study whatever you want to study, whether it's the moon, which is so important, or whether it's some other planet and the sun. So you see there's a transit aspect of Jupiter. So these are the various bi-wheels available at the moment. And there are various other ways of seeing. There's a lot of ways of seeing aspects. We'll show you a few. So there are various ways of looking at the impact of the transits on the natal. I'll just show you one particular system, which is using the Ashtakavarga. We'll make a bit of space. So this is the Ashtakavarga chart for the natal chart. You see it says Aishwarya Rai, and she has an asterisk, like she's got Saturn in Gemini. So it shows you which particular score is applicable to Saturn in her chart and all the other planets. But if we click on it and we choose the X always means cross-compare between the two charts we're working with. So we click the X one, then you see that her planets are still indicated with the asterisk, where there's a little cross where the transit planet is. So we can say, for example, Saturn is currently transiting Aquarius, so there's a little X. So this is one way of seeing. This is a snapshot view based on the current transit. Of course, if we run the transit, we'll see this also updating. Everything updates when you run the time forward and back. But there's another way of actually seeing the Ashtakavarga scores over an extended period of time, which is quite useful. And this uses one of the muhurta graphs. So we can click here and we type a little bit of muhurta, and you see there's an ingress chart. So this part of the ingress chart, make this a little larger. Now the ingress chart can start from a day and it can get, I think, goes up to 5 weeks. So here we are, we're looking at a month, and we see the moon changing signs. At the moment, it's color-coded by the planet ruling the sign. And occasionally the others, here's the sun changing in the middle of the month. So this is there's lots of ways of working with this. For example, if we click here, we can switch it to nakshatras. And this is signs. We can include Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto if we like. And this is the natural colors of the planets, you know. Gemini, Mercury is green. But if we click here, this is the dignity of the planet in transit. This is whether it's malefic or benefic. And this is the Ashtakavarga. So this is based on the natal Ashtakavarga and how the Ashtakavarga scores are being stimulated or enlivened, or whatever we like to say, by the transit planets. So as the sun is moving through these different signs, it comes to places where there's more or less Ashtakavarga scores. Now, each planet has its own Ashtakavarga, and then there's the sum total of them all, which creates a larger number for each sign, called the Sarvashtakavarga. So this is the Ashtaka graph, and this is the Sarvashtaka graph. So basically, you get a quick look, and you can look over an extended period of time, and then you can see when things are difficult, because the red color, you can change the scheme to something that has more levels. So the golden color is good. This is best, this is good. This is kind of neutral. This is not so good. And if you see anything that's very purple, that's not a good idea at all. It's a low score. So this is one of the many ways of viewing the transits as they happen. And I hope you enjoy using the software and this has been useful for you. And please join us in future videos and like and subscribe. Thanks very much. Have a great day.